Well, let's start actually. So thank you very much for joining us in the Green Pavilion, Green Stage, Sustainability Pavilion today. We are going to have a very interactive, engaging session to map your sustainable journey. So let's first introduce ourselves. I am Olivier Benoit. I will be the moderator of this session. I am leading the Advito organization, which is the consultancy arm of BCD Travel, and I am also a proud member of GBTA Aviation Committee. And Claire, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, Claire Carstensen, Global Sustainability for Enterprise Holdings, and have been with the company 17 years and in sustainability for probably 11 of those 17.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark. I am one of the founders and directors of Thrust Carbon. We are the leading emissions intelligence platform for travel. We do all things emissions data, so the reporting, the reduction, the removal, working very closely with our clients from the likes of the Lego Group through to Novartis, S&P Global, and then working inside TMCs as well, from the likes of Flight Centre through to CWT and then Deem, people like that. So that's us.
Everyone. My name's Katie Leone, and I am with Hertz. I oversee sustainability and social impact programs, and I'm so excited to be here on the green stage. I live for this stuff. This is my jam. To be at a conference that's not a sustainability conference, where sustainability is such a key component, I'm just over the moon to be here. So thank you all for coming, and we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be really interactive, and I'm really looking forward to all your participation.
Woo. Thank you. And I can see you got the yellow mic, so maybe
you know it
by chance. So thank you very much to our panelists. So we have a great, amazing team of experts to play with you today. So I will start our agenda. I will quickly start with one intro slide to set the context, and then we'll move into our game. So we wanted to start with a quick reminder of what is the pathway to sustainable business travel. The starting point is obviously to know what you want to achieve, and the highly recommended first action is to set goals, preferably set science-based target goals. So that's your starting point. Then there are 4 steps that you can work on to build a more sustainable business travel program. Step number 1 is to influence demand. So it's about influencing the traveler behavior, the question like, should I stay or should I go? This is the first step to a sustainable travel, but then when you travel, there will be a lot of smart decisions to be done to potentially travel better. And that will be the topic of our game today, how to travel better. You will eventually travel. You will potentially travel better if you do the right choice. But eventually, you will have emissions. So you can consider offsetting these emissions. And offsetting emissions is not as simple as it seems. There are a lot of things to think about, and I think Mark will tell us more about making the right decision to offset. Eventually, the last step here is obvious. You need to engage travelers. If you want to influence their behavior, if you want to influence demand, if you want them to do the right choice to travel better, they need to be aware, they need to be educated, they need guidance. So that's what engaging travelers means. It's maybe more than travelers. It can be also your management, so your stakeholders, your peers, and this is a collective journey. It's not only about the corporation and travelers, it's also about suppliers. So engaging suppliers is also effective. That's it for the introduction. Let's move to our game, and we need you, please, to take your phone. Don't try to scan this because it does not work. We have tried just before the session. Go to slido.com and enter this code that you can see on the screen. That should direct you on the pool, not the Q&A, the pooling page of the Slido, where we will ask you some questions. So, what are we talking about? What is the rule of the game? We want to map a sustainable journey. So we came with a simple idea, very much GBTA related. Let's imagine that the journey is from GBTA San Diego Convention to Brussels, where there will be the next European convention in November. So that's our journey. This journey is made of different steps, as any journey. You need to move from your hotel to the airport, then you will fly. And in our story, we have decided for a stopover in New York. So we'll fly to New York, and then we'll go next to Brussels. So at each step of the way, there are some questions that as a traveler or as a travel planner or as a travel manager, you want your travelers to ask themselves to make the right decision, the best possible decision to mitigate, to lower their CO2 emission. So we would like to start with the first leg of our journey, and I will turn over to you, Katie.
All right.
Ask the first question.
Okay. So you have it up there. Can everyone see the screen all right? So that's your first question. So we're trying to understand your ground transportation options and some of the factors that you might consider when choosing the most sustainable ground transportation options. So go ahead, scan it, slide it, tell us what you think. We should start to see your answers pop up there on the screen shortly. And I think the really exciting thing about being in the hot seat, which you all are, it's not us, it's you that we put in the hot seat today, is that this is really a tangible thing that everyone can think about when they're making decisions in their everyday job. So not everyone is as lucky as us. You can't all be sustainability professionals and think about this every moment of every day, but you can integrate it into the work that you're already doing. And I think that's the key thing about sustainability and to really encourage mainstream and widespread adoption is that every person has a role to play. And so we hope that our activities today enable you to understand how you can contribute and what role you can play in building a greener future for business travel. All right, so they're coming in. We see a lot of light rail, shuttle. Okay. Transportation fuel sources. Good. Ooh, what's the safety? Yes. So you might think of time of day and how many people are traveling. All right. Ooh, the source of the light rail electricity. Now you're really using your critical thinking skills. I like that. +1 for that. CO2 per passenger. Yes. So, different, it's going to depend on the group size. As a travel manager, what might make the most sense for a group of 2 could be totally different than what makes the most sense for a group of 20, right? A very good point. All right. Electric taxis, are those available? Well, yes, indeed they are. Actually, if we could go to the next slide, I think you've all done a really great job. So is the shuttle electric or diesel? So again, someone mentioned fuel source. That's really critical. And even taking it that step deeper, what is the power behind the electricity? What's fueling it? Is it renewable? Is it natural gas? Is it nuclear? What's the makeup of that? Next slide, please. What are the CO2? You guys covered this. You're really nailing it. I think we could go on to the next one. Hybrid or electric? Yeah, so one thing that I'm really excited about at Hertz is that we've been able to power over 5 million electric trips for business travelers who are Ubering in over 30 cities. So that's huge. Those are the types of things that are really coming to fruition now, and you can take advantage of that right now today. What is the distance being traveled? So yeah, you got this. That is your ground transportation piece, I believe. Is there any more? That's it. Passing it on to the next.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. So I will take the next question. So now you're at the airport and your travelers are going to actually board a flight from San Diego to New York. So what factors, what are the questions you may consider to book most effective, so the greenest, let's say the greenest flight to New York? So let's look at your answer, your questions. Non-stop or connections? Can I offset my flight? Is there a direct flight? What about the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel usage for that particular trip? Set again the aircraft type, the age of the fleet. Oh my God, you're pretty good at this. Let's give you 10 more seconds before we look at not the answers. There is no right or wrong answers, but let's say the most relevant questions that you may consider. So what is the cost? That's, of course, an important question. The age of the plane, that's very much also related to the aircraft type, potentially. Economy class, yes, economy or business class, flight distance. Maybe that's also related to the direct or indirect. And the class of service, we have economy. So let me actually share a couple of questions, but we'll see. But I think you got them all. Oh, actually, maybe not the first one, but it's tricky because the first one is there a high-speed rail alternative? So I'm not sure it's really applicable for a San Diego, New York, but I wanted to make that point because for short or medium haul trips that will be available on a high-speed network below, let's say, 3 hours, that's something potentially to consider, knowing that the rail, if powered by renewable energy, will drive at least 25 times less emissions than an airplane. So that's typically a question you may have in Europe, many high-speed rail networks, in Germany, in France, in UK, in Italy, in Spain, Japan as well, bullet train, in Korea more and more, and in China, 40,000 miles of high-speed network in China. The challenge being that the energy is not the cleanest possible source in China. So that was for the tricky question. Now you got that. Is it direct or indirect? Obviously, it's a question of distance, so it makes total sense. Less emissions for direct flights. How efficient is the aircraft? Is it a new generation aircraft, old generation? So if you take a Boeing 787 or Airbus 350, so new generation, long haul, you will have, let's say, 20-25% less emissions. So it's a lot, 20-25% less emissions compared to a Boeing 767 or an old Airbus 340. Economy, that makes sense. Cabin matters. 3 times less emissions in economy compared to business. So your travelers may not be really happy if you kill the business class travel policy, but that's something potentially positive for the climate. You add that one. Do we have SAF on board? It's difficult to confirm that there is SAF on board. Usually airlines will tell you that they are investing in SAF and they blend it in their network. So it's not necessarily the San Diego, New York flight that will operate on SAF, but if the particular airline is investing in SAF network-wide, that will have eventually a positive impact. You got that one? Offsetting options. I think, Mark, you will talk about offsetting later, so I will not develop that point. So that's it for the questions we wanted to share. You are actually now thinking about offsetting. So, Mark, this is the next question for you.
Although, just to clarify, offsetting will have no impact on the emissions of your flight. So, offsetting is what gets you to carbon neutral, right? Like, and that is a decision we can make right here and right now. Investing in offsets is an opportunity to avoid emissions elsewhere in the world or make a reduction to kind of counterbalance what we're doing. Really, what we're focused on is net zero by 2050 and driving those reductions across our travel programs absolutely as quickly as possible. So, yes, would you like to offset your travelers' flights? What should you consider when comparing offset options? And as a quick check-in, who does already offset some of their travel? Very good. Who offsets their meetings and events? And yes, that was a little bit of a plug for GBTA, who have measured this and have offset the entire event, which is fantastic because it is such an important step forwards. We often refer to it as a necessary half measure, right? It's not going to get us to net zero, but just because it does that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it, right? Because it is fundamentally making the world a better place. So what else have we got up here? Standards. We've got vetting of projects, high quality. There's a concern around double counting. Permanence, excellent. So a big part of permanence, you might see programs where people are planting trees. You need to be able to account for the reduction now. Tree planting, an oak tree takes 100 years to reach carbon maturity, so it's really not going to help offset your trees right now or your travel right now. And nature-based solutions have lots of advantages. They also have lots of challenges. You really want to find great partners who can walk you through this. What else have we got? The age of offsets. Did anyone know the age of offsetting is called a vintage? Like a wine? That's a fun fact for you. What else have we got on there? Still going, great. Yes, and carbon neutrality, to confirm, if you measure accurately and then you offset it, you will be carbon neutral. It is as simple as that. But that is often confused with net zero. Net zero is the actual genuine reduction of your emissions across your travel program or wider business operations. Fabulous. So fantastic answers. Obviously, we thoroughly encourage you to offset your travel programs. There's a range of exciting partners here. We as a business at Thrust Carbon, we don't run offsetting programs. We have no vested interest in them. We're always happy to walk you through this, and then we have tech tools that can help sell it and put it inside exciting environments for your travelers. Next question.
Oh, I'm going through the... Oh, you want to go to the next question?
Oh no, it depends. How are we doing for time?
We are good.
Fabulous. So we can talk about the parameters used for the actual carbon footprint calculation. Who's currently calculating their whole travel program emissions? Fabulous. Would you like to share any methodologies you're using or calculators? You don't? Sorry? You're doing it on DEFRA.
Replace it.
Fabulous. So DEFRA is a great start to understand your carbon footprint. It's averaged out data across all of your flights, your entire travel program, or your entire air travel program. It's a great starting point. Then there are next level methodologies that can give you all of the things that we were talking about on the previous question. So your load factor, the distance traveled, your class of travel, the age of the aircraft, your efficiencies, and all these other factors that you'll hear plenty about. Wonderful. Does the offset provider align with our values and the messages we want to send? If you have lots and lots of time, please dive into all the different, there are some amazing offsetting programs out there. Some are very expensive and premium, some are super, super cheap. At the same time, if it is verified, then, be it Vivera, Gold Standard, it means that it is, beyond reproach. You don't need to worry about its quality. It's very expensive and time consuming for these organizations to go and get these things verified. They are absolutely brilliant. You don't need to worry. What's confusing for a customer can often just be the massive contrast in price. Sometimes it's down to the quality and scale of the program, not quality, the scale of the program. A hydroelectric dam is more affordable to design and create than a bicycle repair program that's preventing you from making more bicycles, and then whatever it might be, or a cook stove project. They're just going to be more expensive. Yeah, so this is kind of touched on the certification and monitoring. You know, Vera, gold standard, fantastic. Then you've got like American Carbon Registry. There's lots of programs like that. Again, your TMC might be able to walk you through this. Equally, events like this are great for meeting some of these people. If you have a sustainability team in your organization, it's really worth engaging with them. They may already have an offsetting strategy, partnerships, things like that you can leverage on. You know, you don't have to feel you have to do this all on your own. And again, plenty of people in this room who you can go to for support. And then a portfolio approach. This really just means, do you want to offset everything in one go with one organization or spread it out? Sometimes you're going to have to spread it out because there's just only going to be a certain amount of offsets available, and you've got to purchase some here, some there, and so forth. It also means you can engage your travelers in different ways. Does it relate to their journey, where they're coming from? Maybe you've got a large operations in that particular region of the world. You know, how do you then put it in your marketing? Because if you're going to do something positive, you should talk about it, right? And earlier we did have a comment on greenwashing. You should really only be afraid of greenwashing if you are over-egging the pudding, if you are over-claiming what you are doing, if you're not sure if you're going towards carbon neutrality or net zero because you're not sure about the terminology, then ask for help, right? Because there is a lot of new terminology. There's a lot that of a learning curve. And again, you know, you're not on your own. You also have travel programs to manage. You know, your primary concern is not the quality of offsets. So again, big fan of asking for help.
And I think, yeah, Mark, I think you take the next question. So now our travelers are in New York and we want to talk about accommodation.
So very, very tired. They'd like to rest in the greenest hotel possible. What questions might you ask when procuring a green hotel? In my head, I always hear the countdown music, which I don't know if it translates to a US audience, but in Britain, it was a wonderful TV show, game show. It's still going, and it has this brilliant clock, and it goes dun 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 doo. Yeah, but it puts the pressure on when you do that. Jeopardy.
That's what I said.
Yeah, sorry. I should have got that. Water use right in the center. We've got location, we've got LEED certification, excellent. That's kind of energy usage, energy efficiency. We've got food and beverages. Can you actually walk to the hotel, right? So it's that, are you adding in more travel between your airport, your hotel, or your meetings, wherever you need to be? Regional energy. That's a nice one. I'll share some data in a moment and we'll show some differences. Do they report actual... Oh, it's all moved. There we go. Do they report actualized carbon and water data? Fantastic. Should we go to the questions, the follow-ups? So this is a great starting point. Does the hotel itself have a net zero goal, plan, strategy? Is this published in their annual reports? Is it just a statement, or is it actually something that they are putting into reality? You might not want to read every single annual report out there of every single hotel or report, so again, a good time to ask for some support and help, but equally some of this stuff is very public, and there are more and more organizations who can then kind of credit that process as well. And with that, we get, does the hotel have any sustainability certifications? Again, it's a really nice way of understanding what's genuinely going on inside the hotel, in the chain, in the independent, whatever it might be. Yes, there's lots of different types of certifications, lots of different standards. It can be off-putting, but at the same time, it's a good step forwards. And again, there are lots of people in the industry who are then working to standardize or indeed index all of this information, because comparing a Scandi certification versus maybe one owned by an individual hotel, very, very different. Some are incredibly thorough, incredibly rigorous, and some are not. And then we get to what is the carbon footprint per occupied room per day. So the hotel industry is kind of catching up to almost where aviation's been for the last few years in terms of pushing for more data, and there's layers to this, right? So the best raw data out there is through the HCMI kind of report, and that has data on about 47,000 hotels that will give you per room information, and you've got carbon, water usage, etc. within that. But even within those 47,000 hotels, there's probably maybe only 10,000 who have everything that you really need. 10,000 hotels is not going to get you your entire hotel RFP program figured out. And then so really we're relying on average data that is extrapolated from that and then created around city averages or indeed country averages. But then that does mean we can dive into that data for that hotel. But then where we're going to be in the next 5 years will be far more sophisticated information, as if you imagine the hotels get better at reporting in the first place, at just measuring, then get better at reducing it, sharing that information so you can have it, inside, anything from BCD to Concur to Deem to wherever it might be, and actually available for the traveller so they can see it when they're making their decision. Like all of that is coming. And I can give you some nice little stats actually while we're in San Diego, and I'm going to have to read these, so I apologize. You can tell I'm not the data guru in our business. So in San Diego, we've got a nice little example. The best and the worst cased mid-scale hotels, the variance is about 5.5 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per night, and the average is 7.5, and that is the same as producing 121 plastic bags. So it does put it into perspective if you're doing that on a per night basis, per room, over and over and over. And then some good news when I think about hotels, and I do like to share good news. We are genuinely making impact in the industry. The reduction in US hotel emissions has dropped 12% from 2015 to 2018. So that's good. We are making progress, and the sustainability efforts have only increased since then. And again, with more and more data inside the booking flows, it puts more pressure on the hotels to really drive all of this forwards. You'll know here, every single enterprise we work with and that's in this room, sustainability is top of the agenda on RFPs. We had a great piece of information recently from one of our TMC clients who said 20% of their clients already have taken hotels outside of or off their travel programs because they couldn't validate the sustainability claims that the hotel was sharing. So much positive movement, and the more we hold everyone in the supply chain, accountable for their actions and for their progress, the more it puts pressure on everyone to invest and to grow, and we really do need to be investing in sustainability as much as we possibly can do for the sake of getting to net zero by 2050 and ideally a 50% reduction by 2030, but that will be a challenge. Right, and so we kind of covered this in terms of using that HCMI data to understand water usage per room, but we're not there in terms of having that across the board for every single hotel in the world. But again, as another example, if you go to Abu Dhabi, your carbon emissions are going to be treble what they are here in San Diego. Houston is double what we are in San Diego, again, reflection of the heat and all of the aircon and water usage and so far that comes with that. Ace. And again, if you imagine, if I ask you, are we tracking this over every hotel in the world? I think we intuitively know what the answer to this is. So again, it's like putting the pressure on the hotels to do this, to map this out, and then communicate all that data. So it is really, really robust and rigorous. Ace. And then do they have any other green policies? We've all seen, towels being not cleaned just religiously, so you can actually take control of that as the traveller. More and more policies like that. I can't wait to no longer see any single-use plastic bottles, like I cannot stand those. There is no room for virgin plastic in our lives anymore. We just don't need it. It is more expensive to have second-use plastic. It doesn't last as long. There are downsides to it, but those downsides are all very, very, very doable to live with when you think of the comparison for where, or the challenges and imminent, the challenges the planet is facing. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I think now we will move to Claire to address the last question. Our travelers are in Brussels, so what's happening?
Great. So they'll be there for 3 days, and they want to rent a car as the most efficient option to get around. What questions do you ask when choosing the greenest car rental? Cue the Jeopardy music.
Should have thought to do that.
Next time we're going to get the soundtrack up.
Yeah.
We'll do every other
Next time.
question. We'll switch. We'll do the American version,
And the Europe version?
European version.
Yeah.
We'll get some final countdown in there for any Arrested Development fans, cover all the bases.
I'm with you on that one.
Okay, so results coming in now. So I like the sharing scenario. I think that's always a miss, especially even for folks that have worked for a company for a while of, hey, we're getting there at the same time, let's carpool. Let's take the same vehicle. Emissions per passenger, I think this one goes for extra credit just because, again, you can look at this from a couple of different lenses, and if that's a lever that you have internally, I would go ahead and scale that metric just to be able to review that information. Obviously, electric options, hybrid options. What's the parking situation? You can't necessarily discount that. I think that's also relevant because you want to make sure that as you get around that you have options to be able to either charge or put the vehicle in a location that you know that is going to be safe while you're out and about during GBTA. Obviously, class of vehicle and gas, it's really interesting. I'm seeing some questions come in specific on the types of vehicle where yes, we have electric, yes, we have EV, but manufacturers have driven fuel efficiency standards going for 2025 through CAFE regulations. So years ago, it was really interesting where we did comparison over previous makes and models of vehicles. There's not as much of a swing currently. So right now, depending on what's available on the lot, it is a more fuel efficient vehicle than ever before, in addition to some of the more transformational options that we are able to put out. I think that covers it. Can we go to the next slide to see how our panel reviewed against your feedback? So again, is the vehicle hybrid or electric, looking at that in terms of options? And I think it's important just to reinforce the fact that you can lean on your suppliers based on your supply chain goals. I think it's important to look at small, medium, and long-term scenarios so that as travel policies are more robust, you're leaning on your suppliers to help you meet your carbon reduction and other efforts, that you don't necessarily need to do all of that at the onset. I think this is obviously an evolution. You're not looking out to achieve these next level initiatives. It's what is the short-term scenario? How might I adjust my travel policy today? And what does that roadmap look like over time? Fuel consumption, again, this was brought up. I think this is key as well, just knowing that this is still a part, obviously, for 2022 and short to mid-term. So we want to ensure that we're responsible in terms of those fuel-efficient vehicles in addition to the technology advancements that we're all watching. And the next one. How large is the car? Again, I call it the SUV swing. My friends at TerraPass joke with me on this again, and the fact that miles per gallon today looks drastically different than it did before. So again, fuel-efficient fleet options are available in a variety of different ways. And there might be one more. Yes, can they share a car? So my marketing counterparts, I think, will be departing with me tomorrow as we head back to the airport, but honestly, we weren't proactive about that. So again, shame on me, especially from a transportation company, of reviewing that as an option to ensure that you're looking at that collectively in terms of event planning. And I think that's Q&A.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, thank you. That brings us to, I think we have a couple of minutes left. I'm checking. Yes, we're good. So we would like to open the floor to any question you may have, any clarification questions about the answers or the questions we shared or any other topic? Let's be like crazy. Any other topic about sustainability, because they are really experts. If you may use the mic.
What are the most reliable sources of information about finding out about the best carbon footprint?
The most reliable source of information about the emissions? That's a very good question. I don't know. I have a conflict of interest because I think as Carbon 4 at Vito is selling an extremely reliable source of information. So, but a more honest answer would be that there are many different sources. So there are many different sources that are available, and there are many different scales that are also available for free. And there are other scales that are more advanced, that could be and should be actually more accurate, that you will have to subscribe or pay for. So I think we heard about DIFRA. DIFRA, for example, is a scale that is widely used in the industry that will provide CO2 emissions for air, for ground, for rail, for lodging. But I think, as Mark said, it's a very good first step to estimate. It's not really accurate enough to pilot and measure and track and report very precise CO2 emissions. But there are multiple options, which is, by the way, a challenge for our industry, because a single version of the truth that would be used by everybody, that would be even come for free, would be great. But we are not there yet. So, Mark, I don't know if you want to add, or Claire or Katie.
Yeah, so I mean, when I think of sources of data, we look across travel in different areas. Starting with air, the best source of truth should be airlines, right? So a question is, how do we get all of that airline data and then apply climate science against it and get that just clear, accurate number, and then put it across the travel tech ecosystem, right? Again, where we obsess and spend all our time thinking is, how do we get data to the traveler in order to influence the traveler to bring down emissions, right? And currently, the thrust carbon methodology, the Gate 4 methodology, they are then estimates based on all of the information that we have available to us from different kind of other sources that we go off and find, plus very rigorous climate science. The industry will evolve, right? And that's going to only get better for the traveler, right? As a startup, we've been great in being able to agitate and push people forwards in ways that they might not have been ready for at the time, and that only moves things forwards, right? By being inside booking tools, it puts more pressure on the airlines to go, actually, we need to get our data out there, so the ones who are performing better in terms of driving their sustainability forward, their emissions down, they want that data in the booking flow because they're going to benefit from it. Because if you can choose a flight that's 20% less emissions than another one, you're going to do that as much as you possibly can do, and even more so if there's regulation saying you've got to start hitting reductions or whatever else it might be. So that's moving in the right direction very nicely. When I think of hotels, again, there are so many, like the Cornell Institute, HCMI, these are people who are then going off and doing all of this research. You don't necessarily need us as a company to rewrite the script. What you need is us as a company to give you that information in a way that is accessible and makes sense. Again, enterprise is a source for all things, fleet and for your cars. I don't know if you want to jump in, right?
So we offer emissions reporting based on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, dependent on what you've rented. And one thing partnering with Thrust Carbon that we've realized too is the fact that you're pulling data at the time of booking, and then you may want to review that a month or quarter later, because what you might have rented or what you stayed in might have been different from that initial booking scenario. That wouldn't necessarily scale immensely from the emissions perspective, but it is something you might want to track. So that is just one call out.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it's about I think it's also about like the data sources that you have available to find the best methodology. I know, like, for example, the EPA's methodology for calculating emission requires that you have miles per gallon, which if you don't have that, maybe use DEFRA. But if you have that, which we do in the car rental industry, you know, we conduct those analyses all the time to assess which is more accurate. So if all things being equal, you know, use either. But if there is a statistically significant difference between the methodologies, and to your point, you know, it's about transparency. You know, the earlier panel today was talking about the collaboration happening among the industry. So even though we're competitors, we have a responsibility to our customers to ensure that they have that good data, and we are up here on stage together because we're willing to work together on those things. You know, it's really important.
Any other question? Yes?
Hi, thank you. So I know we talked a lot here about sort of influencing the individual traveler and how they can change their behavior. Are there any trends you're observing in terms of like how companies are adjusting their corporate travel policies to either nudge or require their employees to make more sustainable travel choices?
Yeah, I know, you know, we have some founding partners for electric vehicle corporate partnerships. I think they're really kind of the first movers, even beyond some of the leisure travelers, you know, because they are able to influence employee behavior in a way through their corporate culture. So we do have a lot of founding partnerships and a lot of people really knocking down our doors, asking us how they get involved and having those conversations about, you know, considering the whole economics of it all. So really thinking of like the cost of carbon and you know, the fact that you're not buying fuel. And so like really getting beyond that initial sticker price and looking at like the total cost implications.
There is definitely a trend for two reasons. The sustainability is hot on the agenda. It's a priority, and there is also what we call a back to travel pattern, you know, after what happened. So there is a trend for corporation to not necessarily to completely redo their travel policy, but to relook at it, to revamp it, to address sustainability options, as well at the same time as the corporation are going back into the market to source car rental companies, airline contracts, lodging. So there is a pretty high level of activity in revamping, relooking at the travel policy.
I can add to that, but let's maybe do some more questions and see what else comes up. Yeah, go on.
Hello. You know, what I observed from this session is that there's a lot of questions that buyers are asking and should be asking. And I think that poses a little bit of a challenge for suppliers. And with two suppliers on stage, you know, what tools would you like to see? What's the best path forward to harmonize some of these questions to make your lives a little bit easier?
I think the work that GBTA is leading, honestly, really is doing that. Like, huge plug to the sustainability toolkit that's coming out. I think it's helping to harmonize that. And, you know, a lot of what we see a lot is that people are really interested in the topic, but they just don't know what questions to ask. Everything from that to someone very sophisticated asking all the right questions. So I think the GBTA is really helping everyone kind of get aligned to what the right questions are to be asking. There's always going to need to be some customization to it, but you know, I think 90% of it's going to be pretty similar. Everyone's going to want to know the same things. Even you all kind of came to the same conclusions that what we had on the slides later. You know, it isn't rocket science.
I would agree, and I think also a huge significant portion coming from that data analytics. So you heard probably a handful of methodologies even in this conversation. So ensuring that your suppliers are working with those that walk the walk when it comes to the methodology. And then for us as a supplier to relay that information to you that you're continuing to work with us on your goals. I was attending a conference in June and it was interesting because I think there are still some RFPs that come in that ask questions that are sustainable business practice, but may or may not directly influence your particular travel program. So I think you can also be more selective in terms of price, product offering, And again, looking at that short, mid-term, long-term of how to be able to leverage your suppliers from that particular perspective, in addition to the GBTA toolkit that Katie mentioned and other tools that we as a committee are working toward so that you have additional resources for 2022. There was a lot of work that was done several years ago from similar sustainability committees under GBTA. It's come to the forefront, things have evolved, and we're all working toward the same goal.
And I think that's a fantastic way to wrap up this session, to highlight how good is GBTA at providing tools to the members. So we would like to thank you for your great engagement, and you made that session interactive. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to thank our panel. So Katie, Mark, and Claire, thank you very much.